Hey guys, just a really quick little note before I sort of get into the actual video itself. This is an episode 0, so I'm actually recording this in the future from when I actually recorded what you're going to be looking at. This video that you're going to be watching is really just the game setup. It's nothing at all to do with gameplay. I will be explaining a lot of different things as I go through it and showing a lot of stuff. So if you're interested in the game setup and what you can do and why it's so wildly different, why it's different to, for example, Stellaris and Gal Civ, you can sort of, I sort of talk a little bit about those sorts of things as well. I'm very mindful, as you'll see in just a minute, I'm very mindful about trying to present this game so you can make a choice as to whether you want this game or not. Anyway, I'll hand you over to Past Me. Welcome, gamers, to the start of a new Let's Play series, and I'm going to be treating this as a bit of a, not a tutorial, but just I'm very mindful that people will be looking at these videos thinking, do I really want this game or not? And so I'm going to be trying to explain things, not ad nauseum, but still enough. I'll try to keep that in mind, that if you're a new player to Distant Worlds, and I know there's a lot of you that watch my channel that aren't really familiar with Distant Worlds, so I will actually go through and try to explain why, for me, this game is just such a special game. And Distant Worlds 2, I have been involved in the beta of the actual game itself, and so I've been sort of lucky enough to really sort of get a good handle on the game. I mean, I certainly don't know everything, but I know enough to be dangerous, and so I'll try to impart the information that I can that will then make it interesting, so that at least you can then make your own decision as to whether this is the sort of game that you want to be playing. Now, I'll also just go off in little tangents. Like, I get a lot of questions as to why is this, like, where does this sit with the other big ones, like Gal Civ? Like Gal Civ 3 is out at the moment, Gal Civ 4 is on the way. You've got Stellaris as well. Like, where does it sit in amongst those games? And really, it's on its own, and it's not on its own way out on top or anything like that. For me, it's sort of like probably the best of those games because of what I like. Just to put this into perspective, Distant Worlds, and like whether you're playing Distant Worlds 1 and Distant Worlds 2, is incredibly unbalanced, and that's what makes it so much fun. Distant Worlds really shouldn't be, I hope they never make this into a multiplayer game, because as soon as you start to go multiplayer and start thinking about multiplayer, you start thinking about how can I balance this to make it fair for everybody. And one of the great things about Distant Worlds is it's just not fair. Your starts can be randomly, like, it's wildly different. And I've never played a game where when you start a game, you don't know what you're going to be facing when you come into it. Every game plays so uniquely because of that aspect. Whereas I think that if you do play Stellaris or Galactic Civilizations, you pretty much know what to expect when you start the game, and that's not a negative from either Distant Worlds or from Stellaris or from Galactic Civilizations. It's just that the other games are built differently. They're built with balance in mind, and they've tried to sort of maintain that so that at least there's, I guess, a bit of familiarity with the actual game as well. But this is extremely different. So I think it's unfair on all the games to sort of ask, where they do sort of fall, but I do find that Galactic Civilizations and Stellaris are probably more similar to each other than they are to Distant Worlds. Distant Worlds has got, I don't know how many different sorts of resources that it actually has. It's just got an enormous amount of resources, and you need every single one of them for different things. So, you've got to really micromanage that, or not micromanage. You can do the whole game with no management at all. Like, that's the other thing. I guess it does set it apart as well. Distant Worlds 2, you can actually play this as a sandbox and just let it run, and where you do nothing at all and just literally just watch it develop. You can actually, like a fair few of the, a number of the beta testers have actually been doing that just to see what actually happens if you run the game for days at a time, and just sort of see who wins in the end. And it's interesting because you can have the AI play your whole faction. Also with Distant Worlds, the whole private sector, you don't get to control that at all. So there's all these little vagaries and variances within the game that the other games just don't actually have. So, and that's what for me makes this game just so special. And also, this is the only game really where, because you don't know what's going to happen, the story that you actually end up seeing or being part of in the actual game is unique, and you really don't know what that's going to be. Like, it's so you end up becoming attached to certain planets or characters or ships that, that mean something to you. And whereas I find that with the other games, it doesn't seem to happen. If it happens, it's because it's been scripted in. Whereas in this one, it just happens because that's just how crazy the universe is in Distant Worlds 2. And I've got to say, actually, at this point in time, the universe in Distant Worlds 2 is a little bit too crazy, and that's going to be nerfed back a little bit. I'll talk about that when we get into it. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what makes this game so damn special. So anyway, let's go and start a new game. When you come in, you've got things like random seeds, galaxy shapes. Now, I won't spend too much time with this, but just be aware that you can really play as blandly or as interestingly as you like. So, for example, if you just want to have like a very sort of sparse, sort of irregular shape where it's just everything's sort of random, you would just go very sparse. So there's hardly any nebulas, and that way you've just got random planets all over the place, which is sort of more like what you expect to see in some of the other games. But then as you start, I'll just keep it on very sparse there for a second. You've got then clusters. And so if I go to big, let's just go real big. We go to 10 by 10 sectors so we can sort of see what's going on here. This is evenly spread. This one here, very clusters things up, but you'll see that it's got little clusters, big clusters, so it's all over the place with this particular one. This one here is even clusters, where it tries to make sure that each cluster is about the same size with other stars in between. And the distances in Distant Worlds, you could play the whole game just in this little cluster here and be done with it, and play for days and days and days at a time, because this is while the rest of the galaxy is doing its own thing as well. It's not like the other games where the scale of the galaxy really doesn't matter much with what you're actually doing. It's if you're playing these big maps, you will be just in a little area for an awfully long time. Then you'll be trying to get to another cluster to sort of take it over. So it's very, very, that's why these games can just go on for such a long period of time. I'll go back to the other end, actually. Now we've got the classic galaxies. These have a spiral shape. I don't know why it's sort of showing it in this sort of shape, but it is sort of it's almost got like a dense sort of area. But you can see if I start to push these up, you'll notice that there's actually a train which then does form the galactic. You've got if you put dense nebulas in, you can sort of see the shapes better. I'll keep it on dense so you can sort of see what goes on here, because the nebulas in these other more random ones do then create big pockets where it does become much more difficult to sort of move your way through the galaxy. They are essentially the mountains of the galaxy, but they're important, and I really like them. But it's up to you guys. I'm going to be playing with dense, but if you don't like them, then just play with very sparse. They do have them in there because there are certain things that can happen inside them. Some of the nebulas are important for story events, and also for sometimes you get special things inside there. But if you play them on dense and then go back to something like this where you see the very definite shape, it's and you can see these arms go all the way out, like with these nebula arms. It really does constrain it inside these lanes. You get a few little breaks out through here, and then you need to get special ships to actually be able to break your way through there as well. That might be an interesting one to even play, actually, something like this in that sort of shape. I mean, if I go back to the 700 stars again and back to this sort of shape, you're then going to see it's still there, but it's just not as pronounced. But at 2,000 stars and then big, we can sort of see what's going on with this. Then we've got spiral as a distinctive shape with two large nebula clouds. So we've got a nebula cloud again going back out this way, another one going back out that way. So it's sort of, again, a spiral shape. So they are different, as you can sort of see through here. This one's almost got like a ring on the outside of it, actually. It doesn't say that there. There we go. Yeah, both the edge stars once again packed together to form a distinctive outer rim. It's interesting, like the way that all the algorithm has sort of been set with these in mind. It sort of works. Then you've got elliptical, which is basically just a fairly densely packed core, and then it sort of dissipates back out, but it's almost the same as this. See how much more even this is? I'll just go back to very sparse. So this is very, very evenly spread, whereas this one is same shape, but much more densely packed towards the core. Again, just interesting ways of playing. Ring with no center. So you've then got it's really just packed around the outside ring. This one here I like, where you've got a packed center and then you've got the ring around the outside as well, and then you can then choose to start in the center, and that sort of would be interesting, I think, to play. In fact, I did that in the last game. Actually, that was what the last game was. Dual rings. You've got dual rings with a centre as well. And again, if I pack in the density, we're going to see that the nebulas will start to try to keep these rings and centres apart to a degree. So you need to break through those to then get to the other edges, which is again interesting, particularly for these big 2000 system galaxies. Then you've got the clusters in through there again. I'm thinking of playing varied clusters though, with dense but down at 700, and it does sort of limit to what you can sort of do through here. So there's going to be a handful of clusters around the place with a few sparse planets in between. I think that would do. Or do we want to do this one? I might go back to the default actually. That's the classic shape. Yeah, that would be interesting just to sort of see where we end up. Yeah, let's do this and see where we go. All right, next, and I'll try to choose this core as our starting point there. So next is the galaxy settings. Now, this hasn't much, the way I'm going to be playing, this won't have much bearing. So otherwise, this would be how you then choose how big the randomly generated systems will be, or the randomly generated AI will be. And so by starting, you're saying it just start off with 1, young is 2 to 4 colonies, expanding is 7 to 8, mature is 12 to 15, and then sort of old is just ancient old things. Now, one of the things I hope that they do change with the game is that they add another setting underneath here for not just galaxy expansion but galaxy tech levels, so that you can actually then see it. So you can, for example, at the moment I'm going to be playing with an expanding set where they've got like multiple colonies but with low tech, and at the moment this would then indicate that you're pretty much, it's going to sort of it's going to be ahead of you essentially if you're playing on a harder setting. So I hope that they do add that tech level amounts in there as well. Galaxy aggression, now normal would be the standards in through here. I'm going to unstable here because I do want an aggressive game, and difficulty I'm going to go hard. So in the previous playthrough I think we were normal or maybe restless and normal, so I've just ramped it up one more slot that way to make it more difficult. Research speed is now going to be normal. I'm going to go with all projects visible, just so if we need to see something in advance, we can at least then aim for it. And then the random research paths, and what this does, it doesn't shuffle the tree around. What it does is it just removes some of the connecting paths, so you can skip over research, which is interesting. So I will do that. It sort of allows each faction to just have a faster way through to a different research that they can go for. Now I'm going to turn off tech trading because I'm going to be starting off a little bit more in advance of the rest of the galaxy. Now the pirates at the moment are a bit unbalanced. I mean, the whole game's unbalanced, but anyway, the pirates are at the moment too aggressive. There's too many of them, and that's going to be tweaked back for the launch setting. So I'm going to push this back to few to make it feel more like what we should expect at launch. Pirate strength I'm going to keep on normal, the pirate proximity on average, and they're going to stay dead when once they've been killed. Space creatures I'll just keep on normal as well. Colonization. Now this is the only thing I've changed here. So the colony prevalence will be normal, the independent colonies will be normal, and the colony influence range will be 100%. This is the size of your empire. So when you have a colony, it will then, as it gets bigger and bigger and more powerful, that particular colony, it will then push the borders out of the galaxy. Now in Distant Worlds 1 this was shown as a circle, but in Distant Worlds 2 what they do is the circle is still there, but they actually have like sectors around the other systems. And so the sectors don't have any bearing at all other than ownership. And so it makes the ownership easier to see. So like I think when people first look at the sectors in Distant Worlds 2, they think, oh, this is like Stellaris, where you've got to travel from sector to sector. No, that's not the case. And the reason that it sort of looks unusual is because it's still the ownership it's still just a circle coming out from the colonies that then sort of impact the other systems around it to then sort of make that sort of form those sorts of the shapes basically, and then the shapes then just get coloured in based on what they're next to, which works out really, really well. Now the colonization range limit is 400 back in through here. That's the default, but I want to play aggressively, and by doing this it means that we've then got a much smaller range that we can then settle. If I go to 400, that's a big swathe of the galaxy that we can settle without any problem. I almost feel that that's too big for for a standard game. It's 150 for me is it seems really nice. I like that sort of feel to it. It does make you play aggressively. So yeah, because sometimes the only way to then get a colony that you really want is either to settle for one that you don't really want, so you can jump around and go to the next one out, or to take over an independent or some other faction, like take over some of their planets to still get that jump across. So it's interesting the way it sort of does work. Now, our faction, last time we played the Mortallans, and so I won't play them again. We're going to be playing the Ackdarians, which are really these ones are very, like it says, Ackdarians are highly industrious, semi-aquatic marine mammals. They have large webbed hands and feet. Yeah, this is sort of more talking about them. What they're good at, though, is research. Like they're very, very good at research. If we have a bit of a look down through here, I'll talk about the colony modifiers when we get in there, but essentially what this is showing is that we like deep oceans predominantly. We like oceans reasonably, and we really dislike sandy deserts and desert savannas. Now, it's sometimes when you look at these numbers, you think, well, where's all the other types? Well, they've basically got a 0% that come down through here. Then you're probably thinking, well, why are volcanics? Why aren't the volcanics ones sort of as negatives as well? I'll show you that in the game if I remember to show it why. There's actually another setting as well, which we can see in the Mortallans. The Mortallans have got the same colonisation modifiers where they've got plus 10 for sandy deserts, plus 35 for rocky deserts, and their desert savanna is plus 25. But they then have a colonisation minimum quality. This is a threshold that's applied to every planet. Now, by default, every planet has a threshold of 50%. And so for them, instead of it being 50% for sandy deserts, rocky deserts, and desert savannas, their threshold comes down to like instead of 50, it's 40 for these, and for desert savannas, it's 45. Now, I think the Boscarans would be another interesting one, I would think. Yeah, you'll see the colonisation modifiers in through here, where they've actually got the colonisation minimum quality for volcanics goes down. So that one sort of becomes theirs is 40% for theirs, so they've got the similar sort of thing as the Mortallans, because the actual nature of those planets is that they're not going to be very good planets anyway. The quality of those planets doesn't go very far. So they need a boost along in the thresholds, and then they get another boost along in their colonisation modifiers themselves. So it's like a double bite. Like it's so, for example, if you've got a plus 30 and you've got a 40%, essentially you subtract 40% off and then add the 30. So the net result is a negative 10. For us, if we have a look at it, for deep ocean worlds, our default is negative 50 plus 35. So the net result is a negative 15 essentially across that one, and a negative 30 for ocean worlds. But the ocean worlds have got better quality. They tend to sort of have a wider range of quality. It works in the game. I'm not making much sense, but it's just interesting the way it does work. But it may look confusing when you see this. Whereas things like the deserts, for example, will have a higher base quality, I think, than for example, the volcanic planets. And so this is just making sure that desert planets are not where you guys want to be. So it's saying that, like, the volcanics are already going to sort of keep you out anyway. You're never going to get inside a volcanic planet, and so we'll make it so that the desert planets are also in that category. So that's sort of where that one does sit. Now, the bonuses we have as Ackdarians, we have like a bonus to all research of 5%. And then we have very specific research, like construction research of plus 10% in through here as well. Ship maintenance savings, so we can have more ships. Ship construction speed goes up as well. And ship energy savings. So we're basically a technologically advanced faction. Each faction has a role. And there's only 7 at the start. The 7 do play very, very differently. They all have different ways of sort of being. So the Ackdarians are very, very much about technology. The Boscarans are all about aggression. And so these are extremely aggressive, extremely violent. And so their benefits, for example, will be weapons research. The war weariness is a big one. Like, we won't be able to stay in wars for very long, but these guys can. They can stay in war for a long period of time. They also have bonuses to their ground attack strength. They also are good at mining, and the weapons damage increase as well. Their weapons natively do better damage, but they're no good at diplomacy. The Harkonish are more your mercantile guild. And so, like in Star Wars, this is sort of like the Mercantile Guild from Star Wars, where and it doesn't show so much in here, but when you sort of know that this is what they're doing, it's sort of like this is a fun faction to play, I've got to say. They've got, they do actually have, like, they'll always try to sort of they'll try to trade with people or take them over, one of the two. And you don't want to sort of get on the wrong side of them, because they do actually have bonuses with their different sorts of ships that they can have. For example, their engine research, hyperdrives, hyperjump speeds, the energy savings on the ship energy savings, so they can actually put more stuff on their ships. Their diplomacy is a little bit off, and they're also reasonably good at staying in war. So they all play very, very differently. Now, I'm not allowed to show these in this particular preview version because the stories haven't been fleshed out, but they are completely playable right now, and they're fun to play. The humans are not like, normally the humans are your vanilla baseline, the goodies, all that sort of stuff. Not in this game. These are more, they're highly diplomatic. You can see there the bonuses. They've got the diplomatic things. They've actually got a little bit of war weariness reduction, which means that they are more aggressive than not. It's sort of, plus 10% aggression back up through here. They're not the goodies in this one. They can be anything. They're good at spying, and they are good at trading as well. So this one will sort of try to form like they're a bit sneaky, I guess. A little bit sneaky it would be sort of how this, and not all that... not all that moralistic. It would be the humans. The Mortallans, which we played last time, are they've got like their bonuses. They've got so many. It's just they're really, really good at what they do, but they don't really get on well with other factions, including other Mortallans. I mean, this sort of still works out in the positive for a lot of these, but it's as opposed to, for example, the humans, who actually even them they've still got like negatives all the way through. But nowhere near as high as like the Boscarans. No one wants to be dealing with the Boscarans. You're getting big, big numbers. Like the Ackdarians absolutely hate the Boscarans. So, but from the Ackdarian side, the Boscarans are, where are they? Yeah, -50. So the Boscarans hate the Ackdarians, but the Ackdarians don't hate to the same degree the Boscarans. So it's just funny how things do work out with how they feel. And so it's not they don't equally hate each other at 100%. Like the Boscarans just really, really dislike, which makes them very, very untrustworthy. The Mortallans are sort of heading out, sort of around the 50% for most of the actual factions. The Teekans are interesting because they are, these are very, very weak physically, and they do actually have, you can see there that they have, like, it's mainly desert planets that they do like. But these are the miners of the galaxy. They have like strong aspects of mining. They've got like better damage control, repair rates, trade income, and ship construction speed. They just build shitty ships, lots of them, go off and strip mine planets, and away you go. That's really what they are. So, and they're fun to play. I've never played them in the base game, but they are a really cool faction in this one here. So anyway, that's the Teekans, and they also have an ability to actually control their mining ships, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it actually is, because it allows them to, like, if you're playing as them, you can specifically do things with them, even though they're a civilian ship. You still actually, the Teekans do get a little bit of control over them. They're a little bit like, what's the faction out of Star Trek? I can't think of what it is. Anyway, they're as soon as I say that, people go, "Oh yeah, it's the one with the funny ears or whatever." Yeah, that's the one. I mean, they're miners, they're traders. They're a little bit flighty. They're a bit all over the place, so they can actually be aggressive. But overall, they'd be a good ally for us. And then the Xenox as well. And the Xenox are a fairly aloof sort of feline race, a feline faction. And if we have a look at this one, we'll sort of see that they've got espionage up there a little bit. Psyops is high. These are the historians of the galaxy, and so they've got things like they've got good shields, for example, on their ships. They're not extremely aggressive. They're probably my least favourite faction actually out of all of the factions. I don't know if I don't like the ship design as much as the other factions, but also I haven't really played them much. They haven't interested me as much as the other factions, to be honest. But anyway, these live on ice worlds, so ice is what they're actually looking for there. So anyway, so every one of them plays differently. They all have different sort of propensities. Like the Harkonish would be preferring marshy swamp worlds. That's really what they look for. So yeah, it's all different. Humans will be continental worlds. Will be their type of like continental forest and grassland worlds are the worlds that they want. Anyway, let's get into it. Now, the reason this is only plus 10% is because these worlds natively are very, very good. They're good quality. And whereas as I say, as opposed to the volcanic worlds, which will have a low quality. So the Boscarans who live on the volcanic worlds do need to have a big boost to make it viable for them. Anyway, let's continue on. We're going to be playing as the Ackdarians, and as I say, at this point in time, it's not as if these aren't playable at this point in time. It's only the Mortals and Ackdarians that are. These are all equally playable. They just don't have their storylines quite as fleshed out. So next, your Empire. So we're going to be playing as a technocracy. I'm going to call this the Dasquatic Nexus, will be the actual empire name. Go to your starting situation. Oh, by the way, the technocracy also then adds different things on there. So counter-espionage, we're going to be able to stop other factions from checking what we're doing, as long as we've got spies set up to do counter-espionage. We do have a bonus with that one. All of our research goes up by 20%. That's quite impressive. That's quite an enormous amount. Colony happiness goes down because we are, we're not the friendliest people. Colony corruption reduction goes down, so we can actually reduce corruption a little bit, but our mining rate is low, and population growth is low as well. So the other one that these are good at is the Republic, and the Republic has got other benefits. I'm sort of tempted to go that way, but because of what else we get, but I think I will just go back down to the technocracy and just sort of leave it there. So we've become a little bit more of a cold fish. That's really what we probably should have called ourselves, the cold fish. I mean, being aquatics. Now, what we're going to be doing for ourselves, I'm going to go trying system. What this means, if you go to normal, it means that you've got really one of every of the strategic resources that you need to basically run your empire. So you're not going to have any shortages as long as you mine everything in your home system. When I say things like mine your home system, it's not, they're infinite resources. So once you've got a mine established and you can protect it, and it really comes down to, can you protect all the mines in your home system? If you can, then you're going to have resources for the whole game. Like, it may be slow mining if you're trying to sort of get away from different things, but you will actually have something of everything in there, and you'll be fine. So I find this a little bit boring. So I'm going to go to trying. And what that will then mean is that some of those resources we'll have in our home system, but some of them are going to have to hunt for. And that's going to make the start of the game quite difficult logistically. So I like that. I prefer that game, so I'm going to go to trying. Harsh is just crazy, so we won't go to harsh. Maybe at some point on YouTube I will actually do a harsh run through at some stage. The expansion, now this is actually where I'm going to go back to starting, which means I've got a single colony, but I'm going to keep my tech level on tech level 2. I've tried it around on different tech levels. Tech level 3 and above is just a little bit too advanced, and tech level 1 and below that is for what I want to do here is actually too low. So 2 is a nice spot for us to start on. It gives us a lot of starting tech that where we can sort of get into the game reasonably quickly. And starting location, I think I'm going to go with the core. So we've got these are the different settings for this one. Deep core is right in the very, very center. The outer core is just in this little area, which that would be interesting. The inner rim is sort of inside this no man's land, and then the outer rim where it's sort of more packed. So I'm going to go to the outer core. So we're sort of like just on the edge, I think. I don't know about the deep core. What may happen because of the settings, the other factions may push me out of here anyway, and I'll probably still end up on the outer rim anyway. But anyway, let's try deep core and see how we go. I don't know if we'll get there. I think because I'm going to start... See, I'm going to go the opposite with the other factions. All the other factions are going to be expanding, which means they're going to have between 7 and 8 colonies. So they're going to be all over the place, but I'm going to put them down to tech level 1. Actually, tech level 1 will still give them a lot of movement around the place, but they just won't be quite as powerful as us technologically. So I think that would sort of work. So we now go to the other empires. And so I've turned off the auto-generating empires, and I've actually put in empires in through here. So I've put these all into tech level 1, so they're 1 tech level below me. I've got 2 randomers, 1 extra Boscarans. They're all on expanding, and then everything else is proximity to us will be random. The government will be random. Home system will be normal, so they won't have the same problems that we have. I don't know if there's a random in there. No, there's no random in there. Anyway, that would be interesting if there was random in there as well. I probably would switch. Would probably do that if that was there. And then relation is not met. Now we probably will meet them, and we'll probably know a fair few of them right from the start because they'll know us. We won't know where they are, but they'll know where we are. Anyway, let's go to the victory conditions next. Now, at the moment, the race victory conditions are a little bit buggy, so we're going to, for the whole playthrough, we won't really hit this victory threshold, but I have moved it back from 80 to 70. I can tweak things here as well. We're going to take over like a port, like 75%. I can change this to, for example, to 50%. Let's just change it so it's a little bit easier with these. I don't know how low they can go, actually, but anyway, we'll do 50% in through there. And what that will mean is that if you can get to, there's 4 factors to the scoring. I can turn certain factors off. I know in Distant Worlds Universe, I used to turn off, which one was it? One of them I used to turn off. It might have been territory. Just so it was only out of like population, economy, and then the race victory conditions. And it was quite fun to play that way. And I think I did tweak these backwards as well. I can't remember what the settings are that I used to use in that one. I'm going to keep them all on anyway, but I'm going to just reduce the required number that we require. So big empires will, like if you can take over, yeah, hopefully that'll sort of then work. In fact, we may even make it so that, say, 30% of the territory, population, say, 40%, and the economy, say, 50%. Let's just do it in that regard. That's going to sort of change the way that the scoring then looks. I'm not going to worry about the time limits now. By default, that says it's supposed to be usually 10 years, and that's usually 0, I think, is what it is by default. I think that there should be a minimum of 5 and a maximum. The maximum really should be like 50 at least. So, but anyway, the game at the moment is setting that to 10. I don't know if that will change. But if you are new to the game and you do turn that one on, make it something 50 or more. It's 10 years is just not long enough to do anything. So really you do want to have that one up there, like 50 or 100 or something like that is the number of years that you do need. Now the general story events, I'm going to turn them on. But what I'm going to do is if we come across any of the crazy sort of the hive ships or the planet destroyers, I'm going to go out of my way to destroy them with through the editor. So I can't delete the ships in the editor, but I can reduce their effectiveness greatly. So I'm going to do that if we come across them at all. So just be aware, anything else is fair game, but if it's a planet destroyer or a hive ship, at the moment they're overpowered, and so they can destroy your game. So I'm going to if I come across them early, I'm just going to find a way to destroy them. Anyway, it could even be that I bring in another battleship or something to sort of try to actually sort of deal with them. Anyway, so we'll continue on. Race-specific story events I'll keep on as well, and then the colony events as well. This is like your random events. This is the story events. This is why we can only play the Ackdarians and the Mortals, because this has been fully fleshed out for them. And then the general story events are sort of like the big things, like the invasion of the Shakturi and these big hive ships and planet destroyers that are left over. They're the things that come in with those, but they also then bring in different other things with different ruins, abandoned ships, which are fun, like coming across and finding a ship that's technologically more advanced than you are, and then you've got to try to repair it. There's fun stuff, and so I do want to have them in the story. I just don't want the wildly crazy stuff. So anyway, let's start the game and see where we are. All right, here we go. And so we know the Immortals already, for example. Our faction is known as the Das. Actually, what I might do, I'm going to make this an episode 0 and leave it here. So that way, at least I've then gone through the setup, and this will be the start of episode 1. So let's leave it here, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.